Hello everyone, this is Digit Theater and I'm your host Digit. Today we'll be taking a look at and analyzing the wildly popular third season of the Netflix hit series, You. You? Not me, I thought he meant you. It can't be me. The entire fanbase predicts I'll be murdered by you by the end of this season. I guess I don't have the best track record. Huh. Yeah, so probably. Okay, enough with the awkward silence. If you came to this video to dive deeper into the thematic nuances of this story, you've come to the right place. And if you're just trying to figure out if the latest installment of this series is worth your time, then this video is kinda right for you. I'm gonna stay spoiler free for the first couple minutes of this video, but once I put this text on screen, you'll know that there are spoilers ahead. Also, to make it clear, the joke I wrote at the beginning was put to paper before I finished this season, so it might have aged horribly by the time I have finished this video, but let's find out. You is the story of a charming young man, Joe Goldberg, who has gone through his entire life for this moment to run into you. He sees you better and more clearly than anyone else has before. You are the one. Or, this is at least what he tells himself as he writes this love story about you before you ever learn his name. He completely believes that the one exists, the person that is destined to be his soulmate, the person that will make all of his endeavors and struggles worth it in the end. He will become fixated on this person, vowing to protect them from any evil that should be standing in their way, even if it means getting his hands a little dirty. And the crazy thing is, it works. Every time he manipulates this story, it goes exactly how he envisions it. Through many calculated actions, he's capable of making these essentially random people fall in love with him until they learn the truth. How could they ever love him after seeing this part of him? The answer is that no normal person could. They would leave him or at least die trying. But the second season asked a different question. What if there was someone that could accept this part of him? Someone that could love him despite his demons? The answer is, there is someone, but this person's demons are just as plentiful. Love Queen was willing to accept every part of Joe, but he was unwilling to do the same. She was never the person he fell in love with. It was the idea of her and how that person made him feel that he truly loved. Joe was prepared to end this story with Love Quinn until...
Joe? No! No, I'm pregnant!
These words saved Love's life and in turn condemned Joe's life to a role of a father and a husband to a wife he no longer loved, leaving the now newly married Quinn Goldberg couple to attempt a fresh start in San Francisco's safest cookie-cutter suburb of Madre Linda. A cool fact is that Madre Linda can roughly be translated to beautiful mother in Spanish, which is a reference to the new mother love and the themes of motherhood and parenting that are present throughout this season. Or maybe it's just named for the neighborhood favorite momfluencer Sherry Conrad, as she runs this uptight town with her backhanded compliments in a blog named Heart-Shaped Mistakes. With this being the town's alpha, it isn't hard to see why Joe finds this place to be a prison. A place he is chained to by his role as a father as he attempts to raise his son better than his mother raised himself. But it's okay because fate has brought him exactly where he needed to be to meet you. Me? No, not you. Her. Don't worry, Pumpkin. For me, it will always be you. Oh, baby. I'm not gonna lie, I did not have high expectations for this season of You. I felt like I could predict everything that would happen in this season before I watched it, but to my surprise, that wasn't the case. The first episode made me do a double take, and it was refreshing. I enjoyed being wrong about this series, both in terms of my narrative predictions and the quality of the season as a whole. It has the same classic tension and twists from season 1 and 2, but with its own unique identity. If you were on the fence about starting this season before this, please take the time to check it out, and you won't be disappointed. If you are still here watching this video, I can only assume that you have finished this current season or did not heed my spoiler warning and like to live on the dangerous side. Live your life however you want, just know I am seriously judging you. Like, just go watch the show and come back or something. Are you crazy? Yes. Only for my honey bun. Oh, baby. Define crazy. Alright, enough of that. Let's get into the analysis of the new content in Season 3 of You. Well, actually, we have to cover something else first. Boo! This guy stinks! I know, we are 5 minutes into the video and we haven't even started the analysis yet, but I promise this is necessary. We need to answer the question of what is the major idea, the statement You is making. What is the theme of You? Now, this may seem simple, but I have gone over quite a few reviews of this series, and I disagree with every single one of them. Like, look, are these people being serious? Themes explored in You include the role of social media in our connections with other people, the relationship between love and control, and the increasing possibility of danger and abuse that women face in romantic relationships. There are no greater narrative connections about social media throughout the entirety of the 3 seasons. It is solely a tool Joe uses to acquire copious amounts of information about people, and the danger and abuse women face in romantic relationships is blatantly not the theme, based on the 2nd season where the woman turned out to be the monster as well. You sold itself as a cautionary tale about social media. It's actually a wicked, satirical tragedy about toxic masculinity. What? Toxic masculinity? Okay, let's ignore Love Quinn in both season 2 and 3 because she's just as much as a monster as Joe, already disproving this argument. But within season 1, Beck's friend Peach Salinger was just as manipulative and psychopathic as Joe, as she was even willing to fake her own suicide attempts just for Beck's sympathy, making this clearly not about gender. It has a lot to do with toxic masculinity in social media in the current day and age. I really can't, guys. I just can't. The theme of the entire series is don't judge a book by its cover. Yes, it seems simple, but I can explain why it is a perfect description of this series. The phrase, don't judge a book by its cover applies to the series in 3 ways, in reference to literal books, to people, and to relationships. Whenever a high-quality book with impressive contents is shown on screen, it has a surprisingly bland cover. No intricate designs, and sometimes they don't even have letters. In sharp contrast to the books with flashy colors that people are lining up for. The idea is that you can't tell a book's worth without opening it, much like how you can't tell a person's character without actually taking the time to sit down and talk to them, with a person's public persona being the metaphorical book cover of this person's deeper content. And this connection isn't too out there to make because of Joe's near identical treatment of both books and people. In season 1, Joe sees books as something that is vulnerable and needing of protection, so he assumes that role as their protector and controls everything about them, their temperature, their humidity, light exposure, and he is even an expert on repairing books to make them brand new. He is used to manipulating these things and translates that control to people as well. For the people he has deemed valuable, he's willing to control their actions and the people who interact with them in order to protect them. Almost like he's making his romantic partner a project, much like the books he often repairs. If this connection still seems like too much of a reach, just remember that he keeps the books he finds valuable in a literal cage, like the figurative cage he puts around Beth socially. And I guess literal cage as well. The one difference between books and people for Joe is the cover. For books, he's willing to look past the cover and judge its content, while for people, he's capable of being swept away the moment he sees them. The contents don't matter because he has already determined the person's worth before flipping the cover over. The icing on the cake is the book that is released in memory of Guinevere Beck has an extravagant cover of the same face that Joe fell for, quite literally being the cover that Joe misjudged. A little on the nose if you ask me, but beautiful nonetheless. Now, is this theme objectively the only theme that can be used to describe this series? No, but does it do a better job than any other that I can think of? Yes. But after watching season 3 of You, I was left with a shocking revelation that this theme is no longer fit to describe the series. This is because of season 3's total lack of direction. It has plenty of interesting themes, but most of them seem like an afterthought or surface level. None of these are particularly bad, just not nearly as concrete as I would like them to be. But even if it did stick to the original charm of the first season, many of the changes made to the season had a positive effect on the series as a whole. and I believe the best example of a positive change is the presence of Love Quinn in this season. Yeah, I know Love was in season 2, but was she really? Her character was present in season 2, but we never got to see the real her until the season finale. But in season 3, we are now in on all of Love Quinn's sociopathic behaviors. Sociopathic behavior. Okay, start the timer. Small tangent time. I'm pretty sure some of the differences in Joe and Love as characters can be attributed to Joe being a psychopath and Love being a sociopath. But that's only a theory. A game! As sociopaths are more erratic, emotional, and impulsive, while psychopaths are way more cold, calculating, and methodical. I can talk about this for way longer. I technically already did, but then removed it because I was rambling too much. But there are a couple holes in this theory, but I think it is still interesting to ponder, and I can also use it as clickbait. Stop the timer, tangent over. Not too bad if I say so myself. Okay, back to Love. In this season, Love Quinn is essentially a brand new character, which isn't inherently a good thing, but it is in this case. She's the first and only character that rivals the importance of Joe in the story. I know Beck was important, but it isn't the same. Love is important as a character, not just a love interest. We get to see a deeper part of Love, a sense of rawness that we don't get to see from any other character besides Joe. This is only helped by Victoria Pedretti's amazing performance. Now, I'd love to dive deeper into the nuances of Love's character, but honestly, she isn't the interesting part of this story. The interesting part is the relationship between Joe and Love throughout this season. And the thing that perfectly encapsulates this relationship is Love's last words. Joe, we are perfect for each other but bad for Henry. He'll know what you are. Final words that can only be described as haunting. Words that everyone watching can agree on. Joe and Love are perfect for each other, or at least at first glance. With their psychotic tendencies, love for violence, and an unhealthy obsession towards their partners. But these two are the farthest thing from being perfect from each other. Echoed in a quote from Love's mother in her final scene, "Love is only loyal to herself." A quote that has the most weight out of any other so far, not because it describes Love to her very core, but because it is the exact truth for Joe as well. The women Joe fantasizes about will never live up to his expectations because he doesn't care about them. He cares about the idea of them and the feeling they give him, and once they break out of that mold, he no longer cares about them, proven to us by how he killed Beck and attempted to kill Love. Mind you, they were two people he once considered to be his soulmates. Love broke this mold Joe made for her, but the same can't be said for the other way around. Joe never broke the mold Love made for him, because she knew about his darkness ever since the beginning, which he already learned to accept. Love always loved Joe, but she loved herself just a little bit more. This brings me back to Love's final words, where she not only proclaims her love to Joe, but in the same breath announces Joe's single biggest fear to be true. He'll know what you are. That Henry will know that his father is a monster. She picked the words that would harm Joe the most, even though she loves him. In some sick way, Love won just a tiny bit as she was right. Joe's biggest fears came true. He ended up abandoning Henry just like his mother did to himself. The love between Joel Goldberg and Love Quinn is so tragic because they each truly believed that they were loving each other unconditionally. But they didn't even realize that was impossible from the start because they couldn't stop themselves from prioritizing their own feelings over anyone else's. A story made even more poetic when you remember Joe's and Love's secret way of saying, "I love you."
I wolf you.
I wolf you too.
Wolf becoming an unofficial symbol of their love, with Love's ultimate death coming from a poison called wolfsbane. Bane meaning something that can cause harm or death, while wolfsbane both figuratively and literally being the final stake in the death of their love. This finale was utterly fantastic. It was in equal parts both cathartic and sad, being great thematically and emotionally. So guys, that was really heavy, so let's try and lighten the mood by sharing something great that happened to each of us today. Okay, so I'll go first. So today, my blog and I were given an incredible opportunity and became a sponsor to this channel. Please check out Heart-Shaped Mistakes if you want your family and sex life to be just as prosperous as mine. Oh, that's the woman I love. Oh, baby. Please tell me they don't make it out of this season alive. Sadly, they do. I really liked Sherry and Cary this season. Their actors were brilliant and I simultaneously hated them for it. But on a more serious note, one of the major problems with You as a series are the side characters. Now, many of them are played really well in the sense that they are believable as characters, having both entertaining personalities and interesting motives, but they often lack development, or more accurately, they lack character progression. Many of the characters are static, barely changing throughout a given season, and even for the characters that are more dynamic, say maybe Marianne or Theo, when they do change, it feels insignificant, that their progression doesn't affect the larger story. It also doesn't help that we often don't see many of the side characters after their respective season, but that may just be because most of them do not last the entire season, but some survive, like Paco or Ellie, who is mentioned this season but still has no greater role in the story. These characters are less interesting because of how reactionary they tend to be, while our main characters, Joe and Love, tend to be more proactive, which, if you didn't know, generally makes a character more interesting. Like, think of your favorite character from any TV show, cartoon, anime, whatever it is. They are likely someone who makes choices that then push the story along, which is a trait that makes a character more entertaining than a character that waits for the story to push them into making a choice. And Joe and Love are characters that are pushing the story along while the rest of the cast is just reacting to whatever these two are doing. These characters are more or less narrative tools to make Joe and Love progress as characters. Marianne was just the next person Joe got fixated on, causing him to kill again, which would ultimately put Joe in conflict with Love again. While Theo was just someone that showed us Love's mental state, that she wasn't being appreciated enough by Joe, that she is slightly insane with her hypocrisy of having an affair with Theo, but Joe is wrong for having an affair with Marianne, and that Love is still mourning the loss of 40, as, come on, Theo is the spitting image of 40. Also, side tangent, did you know Love's actor is dating Theo's actor in real life? Isn't that crazy? I mean, maybe they aren't still by the time you're watching this, but it blew my mind when I heard about it. Okay, back to the video. Now, most of the music and the small things the show does to increase tension haven't changed significantly, so I won't comment on them too much besides that they were excellent. Same with some of the twists in the season, such as how Love actually killed her previous husband. Now, I never really thought about it, but it makes perfect sense in retrospect. The pacing was a little iffy from time to time with some of the episodes, such as the one where Joe goes on a hunting trip, which really had no significance to the greater plot, but most of these more filler or episodic moments were filled with cringe or comedy, so I enjoyed them nonetheless. And lastly, for Joe's backstory, I thought the narrative with him in the orphanage was actually really nice. Joe's dilemma was that when he hurt the person that was abusing his mother, she then abandoned him. So, when another person he cared about was being abused, he decided to do nothing in fear that that person he cared about would then abandon him just like his mother did. But the twist is, that person abandoned him anyways. Or, in other words, he didn't have a choice in whether or not they would leave him. Which helps us as an audience understand why Joe is always willing to choose the more violent option when it comes to someone he deems abusive. Because in his mind, whether or not he chooses the violent option, the person may still abandon him, so why wouldn't he choose the option that helped the person he cares about? A cool little narrative that explains a little bit about Joe as a person, but it is awkwardly dotted around this season, killing the pacing at some points. It also didn't help that there doesn't seem to be any greater reason that this piece of backstory is being told to us right now. The writers just arbitrarily decided to put it in the story in Season 3 just cuz. It isn't like Joe is struggling with this dilemma at all in Season 3. It's clunky storytelling. But with that, I believe I've covered all of my thoughts on this season of You. I could easily make a video on every character in this show, but I just don't have the time in this video to squeeze in any more than what I already have. If you think I missed anything important or have different thoughts on this season, just leave a comment down below. And a video like this takes a long time to make, so I really would appreciate if you liked and subscribed. But with that, it looks like we are out of film.